Well, one of our all-time favorites. He was kind enough to join us going all the way back to the win over UC. And what a year he had as head coach of the NKU Norse. Darrin Orn, Coach, how are you? Nice to see you. Are you able to relax a little bit now? What are you doing these days? Just watching some basketball? What?
No, Thom. There's a new phrase in college basketball. If you remember the old video game Mortal Kombat.
Yes.
Now this time of year we're all in Portal Combat.
Ah.
I mean, it's jump in the portal and recruit, and try to figure out your roster. You transition very quickly from head coach to a GM and a little roster management this time of year.
Let me ask you first of all, and I get confused, and maybe even you do. I'm sure you don't. I'm saying that tongue in cheek, but between the COVID year and players getting a fifth year, if they're able to take a red shirt, all those kinds of things, who are you going to lose for sure off the team from this year?
Yeah, the three seniors that just have no more eligibility left are Chris Brandon, our rebounding machine, center, Trayvon Faulkner, who some people in our league, I think, thought played 9 years in the horizon. All the kid did was win 3 championships and qualify for 3 NCAA tournaments. And then our grad transfer point guard used his 5th year, Xavier Rhodes. So those are the 3 for sure in terms of no eligibility that won't be back.
Okay. Now walk me through a little bit, and I find this so interesting when you're talking about the portal. It kind of reminds me of like trying to scout high school baseball players, right? I mean, because there are hundreds of college basketball teams in Division I. Then you throw in maybe a D2 or a D3 guy that might catch your eye. Then you throw in a junior college guy that might catch your eye. How are you able to figure out who's out there and really scout and get a look, or can you talk to a kid? Walk us through how you're able to just accumulate a list of players that you'd at least like to look into.
Yeah, it's really kind of a microwave type deal too, right? It happens fast, but the list is generated, Thom, from they've got to officially enter themselves into the portal. So that generates their name in a list, and then there's some services and some people that put some spreadsheets together about where they're from, what their numbers were, percentages, years eligibility left, that type of thing, and no different maybe than a Major League Baseball team, right? You identify what your needs are and the positions and type of guys that you think you want, and you start chipping away at guys at that position, and as you said, it's anywhere from Division II and NAIA to every level of Division I transfer. And so it's an interesting deal because I just saw a stat yesterday. I don't know if it's accurate. It was Twitter, but almost 50% of the guys that are in the portal right now are low and mid-major guys from schools like ours that average less than 5 points. I'm not really sure where those guys think they're going. But it's you got to sort through a lot of that too, because there's a lot of people that can't help your team win, and we're in a unique spot where our program's in a pretty good shape. We're returning some really key guys, and we don't want to just be in the tournament; we want to win in the tournament, and so we're trying to filter everything through that as well.
Well, you guys played. You guys just played so well. You gave Houston everything they want and more. Everybody tries to learn something from, you can learn from a win, you can learn from a loss, you can learn from tough times, you can learn from good times. Looking back over not just the Houston game, but the entire season, what did you learn about you, your team, your program? What did you learn about it this year?
That's a great question. I think one thing I learned was maybe more of a good reminder that the system works. If you get the right kids and you stick with them and you develop them, they can really impact things. You look at Trey Robinson on our team, who really came into his own and more than looked like he belonged against the toughest team in college basketball in Houston. Sam Vincent's an example of that as well. As at the end of his sophomore year, I'm not so sure he wasn't as good a guard as was on the floor in that game, again, against a number 1 seed with a couple of pros on their team. And so, I think that's one thing is that, just keep believing in what you're doing and building it with the right way with the right guys. But I think the other part is, I mean, and I've been there before, but now our group has, and our guys specifically, have gotten a taste of it, Tom, and like, they don't want to just be there. They want to go back and have success. And, looking at that, where do we need to grow as a program? And, I think there's two components this time of year when you look at who's left, right? It's you got to have a certain element of toughness and a certain ability to compete and play at a high level, just with all the little non-basketball things, so to speak. But then, can you score when you have to score? And that's where we've got to really get better, especially on that stage. We were just not able to get baskets the way we needed to in order to pull off a win like that.
Coach, I happened to be living in Phoenix when Gonzaga made its first run into a Sweet 16. And I just happened to go. My wife and I went to the game. The crowd for Gonzaga was unbelievable. Nobody was even pronouncing the school right. Hell, I'm not sure anybody does anymore anyway. Gonzaga, whatever it is. You know what I'm saying. But the question I have is this. No one, it's hard to believe for younger people, but you and I have been around long enough. It's hard to believe that Gonzaga is Gonzaga, what they are now, okay, compared to what they were even just 12, 15 years ago, right? What comes first, this chicken or the egg thing? Is it getting into a tournament and a few people will watch you play, in your case against Houston, and all of a sudden guys are like, hey, I never really heard of that school. I'd like to check it out. Or the facilities, all that kind of thing. Or do you have to start winning some games, shock a team or two in the tournament, and then the rest comes after it?
Yeah, I think you got to build your program and win, first. And then I think, what Gonzaga's done an unbelievable job of, and I've actually talked to Mark about this before on the road recruiting, is they've been able to maintain that, and not only maintain it, but improve it over the years, because they've never had a drop in talent. If anything, they've increased it. And, now in the last 3 or 4 years, they're going after the same guys that UCLA and Kentucky are and getting some of them. It's not just Pacific Northwest guys. It went from having guys that were really good to now they're able to beat people in the Pacific Northwest, Washington, Oregon, some Pac-12 schools for players, to being able to recruit nationally. And at the end of the day, it all comes down to personnel, right? I mean, my number one evaluation for us moving forward is, all right, we hung in that Houston game. All right, when I'm watching it and I'm being honest with myself, who really belonged on that floor? If we played them 10 times, could play well enough to give us a chance to win again. And how do we get more guys like that? And I think that's where Gonzaga has really, mastered that and done it, honestly, probably better than anybody in terms of being at one level and raising their program to a different level and being able to stay there. I mean, I think this weekend is 8 straight Sweet 16s. I don't know if any of the Blue Bloods even have done that.
No, I mean, it's unbelievable what they've done. Are you watching a lot of these games, or are you just so wrapped up in all this other stuff with your program right now that you're just too busy to even watch a lot of it?
Yeah, I'll watch some. My son's a walk-on at Kentucky, so I immediately left Birmingham and drove to Greensboro and watched their first game and their second game. Again, another great example. Kansas State made some shots at the end. Kentucky didn't. Kansas State moves on. It's really sometimes that simple in March. But no, I'll watch some, especially people that I'm close with, that I have friendships with and I'm pulling for. But we're definitely it's not golf mode right now for sure, because we got to try to make sure that our roster is not only that we fill some holes, but that we get better. And I think that's the number one thing is you've always got to be looking for a better player. I tell our guys all the time, I make no bones about it. If I can find a better player than Sam Vincent and Marquez Walker, we're going to sign him. We're going to sign him because that's what this is. And I think if you've got good players that want to win and be pros, they want you to do that. And we feel like we have that in our program, and that's kind of what our goal is and our focus right now.
Are any of your players in the portal?
None of the guys that played minutes heavy that we really hope come back are in there, and at this point, and again, there's money involved now, right? It's semi-pro basketball, so I guess there could be an offer at some point that can't be refused. But as of now, the guys that played minutes that we want to come back are set to come back.
Okay. Is there are there one or two games out there? What maybe they're both tonight, maybe none are tonight. They're tomorrow night. Are there a couple of games that really, whether it's friendships, whatever the case may be, that pique your interest, where you'd like to find the time to watch a little bit more of it than say some of the others?
Yeah, I mean, just from a basketball standpoint, because I'm really intrigued by it. The UConn Arkansas game. Arkansas has been great in the tournament. They're really tough to play against. I think UConn could win the national championship. They've got all the necessary elements to do it. They're playing really well right now. I think that game's going to be really interesting. And I think the Gonzaga UCLA game, contrast in styles. UCLA's a little beat up, but man, so hard to play against. And, Gonzaga, here they are again in the Sweet 16. And, can they continue to win and make another run to the Final Four? Those are two games to me that really stick out as ones that, just as a basketball fan, I'd like to see.
I found it to be a surprise. Maybe I shouldn't. I don't know. I was really surprised when they said during the broadcast last week about Arkansas getting to 3 straight Sweet 16 since Musselman has been there. I think that is an amazing accomplishment. I don't care if you're coaching for North Carolina, Duke, Kentucky. Your expectations may be higher at those schools, but you've coached
Sure.
down there in Arkansas. They love their basketball at Arkansas.
No question. I think second only to Kentucky in terms of basketball passion in the SEC. And, again, we've talked about it when I've been on here before, right, Thom? This deal is about March. We make no bones about it at our place. It's a different path and mindset, I think, at a mid-major school. But, are you built for March? Is your team built for that? That means a lot of different things basketball-wise. Everybody's got maybe a different approach and philosophy to exactly what that means. I mentioned Mark Few earlier. His whole deal is, hey, if I'm going to err on the side of something, I'm erring on the side of a good offensive player. I want to be able to score when we have to and figure out the rest. Musselman's done it with great versatility, right? A lot of interchangeable parts, a lot of guys that can go make plays for themselves, can make big shots, play one-on-one, switch a lot defensively. And I think, give those guys credit, those two programs as an example. Can you win in March? That's what matters. Look at poor Purdue. There's not a better person or coach in college basketball than Matt Painter. They're getting crucified right now because, they're not lasting as long as their seed says that they should. And, I think a big part of that is, is your team built for March? Because, hey, look, at the end of the day, everybody's well coached, especially you get to this round. Everybody's going to compete, defend at a high level. Can you go make plays on both ends when you have to? That is all this thing is coming down to. And I think Arkansas is a great example of that.
Yep. Well, Coach, we're so excited. Northern Kentucky alum Casey McAllister would like to share before we let you go that he had you. Go ahead, Casey. You want to brag about it? Go ahead.
Well, I had you winning the first game in the tournament.
Fate.
I even had a little bet going on with my boss about this game. So I had a lot invested in this game. I thought you guys had a really good chance of winning. I know it's a disappointing loss, but you guys were right there. Just a few more threes sink, and that game is another upset in the tournament.
Well, what's crazy about it as a coach, I went into it thinking, man, if can we handle their physicality? Can we deal with their level of toughness and defense and on the glass? And we more than held our own in that. In fact, Kelvin's words, not ours, we out-toughed the toughest team in college basketball. I never dreamed that the issue would be we couldn't make enough shots. I thought we'd find a way to do that, man. Are we going to be able to hold them off the glass and stop them enough and just handle the physicality? So, again, proud of our guys and wish a few more had fallen. I think maybe we could have had a chance to pull it off. Hey, but don't overlook, we haven't touched on it. I know you guys probably got to go. Xavier can get to the Final Four now. Those guys can score. They got a coach that knows what they're doing. They've got a guy in Baum, or however you say his name, who can go get a basket when they have to. They can win these next two games, man.
Well, you get to this point, and I think you can make a case. Sometimes it involves matchup. Sometimes it involves, your path to get there.
Sure.
So for Xavier, they're going to have to beat a 2 seed in Texas. That would be tomorrow night. And then, of course, they'd have to knock off, if it is, not to say it's a slam dunk, then it's going to be, but they would have to find a way. That Houston team, they are they big. Just
They're
physically.
so
I mean, when your guys walk on the floor, and clearly you had a lot of guys that were not backing down. You just pointed out, I think anybody that watched that game, you were not intimidated by them. But, man, do they have some guys. The whole team looks like Hercules out there. Doesn't make them great basketball players, but it's unreal.
Even their guards, right, Tom? I mean,
Yeah.
just so thick and physical. And I think the issue with them is that they're incredibly disciplined. And so you're not going to get anything easy against them. They make it really hard on you defensively because they're so good on the glass and they're so physical. But, you know, I just think, you know, they're a team too. There's a cumulative effect of that, right? And I think to some degree it did wear us down a little bit at the end and probably affected our shot making. But they just keep coming at you and keep coming at you. And, you know, what Kelvin's done there is awfully impressive.
Yeah, he's a big-time coach. There's no debate about it. All right, Coach, we thank you as always for your time. We're always pulling for you guys. Wish you nothing but the best of luck, and can't wait for you guys to get us started again next season.
Always a pleasure, Tom. Thanks for having me, man.
All right, great. Darrin Horn, head coach of the NKU, the Fighting Norse.